well, you're not homeless yet. You're in the psychiatric hospital. And I said, yes, but they won't discharge me until the social worker knows where I can go and live. And there was no Emmaus, and the Salvation Army, I've stopped giving it to them because they wouldn't let me in unless I had £5.50. So just for tonight, I won't be sleeping outside. Well, I hope not, anyway. I have a nice bedroom, and there's no bars on the windows, which has not always been the case. You kind of get a sense of knowing that your life's not going as planned when, upon opening your eyes, the walls have no wallpaper and the windows have bars on them. Don't you agree, Terry? Tell God your plans and let him have a good laugh, is one of the sayings. Now, the word alcoholic is not necessarily PC or any of that nature. In fact, I was explaining at the meal table, Bradford Council once produced a document that said there are no alcoholics in Bradford. The word does not exist. I refer to myself as an alcoholic. And I define that, that when I drink booze, I have an allergic reaction, as it brings me out in spots, like Dublin, Birkenhead, Blackburn, police cells. Today, I've got control of my addiction by booze by choosing, this is a big word for me, choosing not to drink. Everyone tried to get me to stop drinking. Strangely, when the reverse psychology was applied by non-psychologists, members of AA, they said, Dave, you want to drink? Have a drink. We're trying to stay sober. You can drink if you choose to drink. Just as a diabetic will not choose to take sugar, it's simply dietary control. That's the solution to my problem. It's just a dietary thing. I choose not to drink. I have no one telling me I can't drink. I can choose to, one way or the other. What I don't want back, and it's got nothing to do with Alison or my son or my business or anything, what I don't want back is the shame and the mental illness that came with my descent. I don't want those days back. I want to wake up as I wake up today at +2, not -5, needing a substance to get me up to normal. According to the Home Office, the incidence of crimes committed under the influence of alcohol is rising steadily. Last year, almost half of all violent crimes were thought to have involved alcohol. Additionally, just under 40% of all domestic violence was attributed to drunkenness. Research by the British Medical Association suggests that between 60 and 70% of all murders were committed by those under the influence of alcohol. I know 3 people who have come to in cells under blackout. A blackout is a period of amnesia caused by alcohol. It's where you dance on the table at Auntie Betty's 80th birthday party and somebody tells you about it the next day. In alcoholic blackouts, they tend to last longer, and these 3 people are all doing life for murders that they have no recollection of committing, usually of the wife or partner or whoever was in the house at the time. As an alcoholic or alcohol-dependent person, my opinion is that heavy drinkers are not in the playground. Heavy drinkers, a lot of people drink too much. They go home at night, they pour themselves a glass of wine while they're cooking, they drink some more, and it's bad for the health, but it's not necessarily life-changing or anything. An alcoholic, someone like me, who drinks too much and has a mental compulsion and obsession with alcohol, which overrides all other value systems. An alcoholic will continue to attempt to do something which they physically and mentally cannot do. They cannot drink safely or in a controlled way over, let's say, 26 weeks. They always mess up. There is something that changes the reactions and things happen. They should actually call all drug abuse, most drug abuse and alcohol abuse, they should call it sedativism. Because it's a heroin, booze, dope is a sedative drug going into receptors that fill up. So you need the drug to make you feel endorphin happy, but your body's really good at knocking off endorphins, and it goes, oh, we don't need to produce anymore. You keep drinking this stuff and producing this happy +2 stuff, therefore we won't produce any. So when you stop drinking, or you come down, or you end up in police cells or hospitals or anything, you're going to shake, you're going to feel awful, you're going to sign yourself out, you're going to want to run away. And so there's a chemical reaction, and I was talking earlier as I came in, My opinion again, research says that there is a genetic predisposition. It tends to miss one generation, granddad comes back in at grandson, uncle, auntie. They call it the Celtic disease. It tends to be an Irish background to it. It's a well-researched thing. It's just that in this country, alcoholism per se is not a recognisable illness. Alcohol is the UK's biggest drug problem. It causes more trouble, it gets more people locked up, it causes more separation, it causes more distress to children, and we don't recognise it in this country. It is hard work being an addict. You're constantly thinking about it. You have to work out how you're going to get it. You have to protect your supply. I once spoke to a lady, she said, this man will not stick to the contract in this care home we're discharging. I said, why? Well, he's agreed to have 3 cans in the afternoon, but every time he's drunk 3, he wants another one. And I said to her, do you smoke? She said, yes. I said, how many do you smoke between 6 p.m. and midnight? She said, I don't know, 4 or 5. I said, so you're driving home, you have 4 or 5 cigarettes in your packet. What will you do? She thought about it. I said, what you will do is you will stop at a shop and you will buy some more cigarettes, because you will protect your supply. Even though you don't smoke more than 4 or 5, you will always ensure that you have some just in case, which is what an addict has to do. The obsession overrides all values, and even with insight, being able to recall previous failures to control in spite of horrendous ramifications and disasters, I continued to drink. My drinking took my family and I to some awful situations and traumas. However, some incidents were more embarrassing than disastrous. I had been on a 3-day bender, and upon returning to work as a charge nurse, I was faced with a ward round for several doctors, a new consultant, occupational therapists, social workers, a couple of nurses. They were all looking at me, and it would have been obvious that I was under the influence of the booze from the night before. Trying to look composed, but I had no concentration levels at this time. I had everything under control as far as I was concerned, when in front of everyone, this new consultant turns to me and says, have you just farted? I replied indignantly, I beg your pardon, I have not just farted. To which he replied, I said, have you just started? There was no hole big enough to crawl into that. Addiction to alcohol dependency syndrome. Alcohol dependency syndrome is recognised by the World Health Organization, and it recognises that it's a diagnosable pattern as the signs and symptoms. Let's take flu. If you have flu, the cause is an unknown virus. The symptoms are headache, runny nose, sore throat. The expectancy of how long the illness will last and outcomes are 4 to 5 days before diminishing. The prognosis is good with bed rest and painkillers. Alcohol addiction is a progressive, life-threatening disease which has the signs and symptoms as all other illnesses. These are the charts. You have one for people who, a chart that goes down the right that shows addiction progressing, and there's one for the families, because the families of all addicts end up crazy. They pour booze. My good lady here must have spent a fortune pouring booze down a sink. Well, of course, I just went out and got some more. So the whole family become crazy. I've seen my wife phone for me sick and then go and get me vodka because I could not physically move without booze inside me. So the families are in denial, they're in need of help, but there is a play, and it's called The Weary-Go-Round. A man and a wife are arguing, he's drinking, they're arguing on stage. The audience sit and watch them. First act closes just with them arguing. Second act, there's a third person involved, a social worker, a psychologist, somebody nice, trying to help them. Third act opens just as the first scene did, and this play goes on and on and on until the audience gets so fed up they stand up and leave. Because the audience get it. There is no solution to it, because it just keeps repeating itself. The addict won't stop drinking or can't stop drinking, and the family members keep on berating them and falling into it. What needs to happen is the alcoholic or the addict or whatever needs to either be put out, or at least there needs to be some lines drawn as to what actions are permissible. The outcomes for boozing, drug, we're starting to see a lot now. You don't generally see people who are just purely alcohol. You tend to find a cocktail going on these days. but the outcomes are the same. The outcomes are death, not through old age or cirrhosis. The biggest cause of death for alcoholics are accidents, fires usually, lit cigarettes, and car crashes, cirrhosis of the liver, damage to all organs. A dementia called Korsakoff's dementia. I now look after people with Korsakoff's dementia caused through alcohol who are younger than me. I have a 32-year-old lady, mother of two, with drug and alcohol dementia. We will see in the next 10 years the outcomes of a lot of heroin use starting to impact on people's memory and their ability to function outside, which is where we'll all start to see a social impact on as people come through. Prisons, as I've said, murders of loved ones, or they can stop drinking. I watched with interest this week the programme Channel 4 are showing on mental illness issues. On one programme, a psychiatrist was explaining how some obsessive-compulsive patients become so fixated with their rituals and planning things that they become incapable of going out to work or buying food, and they become so self-neglecting that they become incontinent and suffer from malnutrition. At which point, many are sectioned under the Mental Health Act as being a danger to themselves. These are obsessive-compulsive people who their whole day stops because their thought process is, I need to go clean this, or I need to go, so they don't go to work and then miss the bus, and so it goes on. So everybody recognises recognisable mental illness. During my drinking years, I had complete insight. I knew what I was doing was destructive to myself and my family. I was on occasions incontinent, I did not eat, I was down to 6.5 stone, I hallucinated, I had a very serious attempt at suicide, as I saw no way out. I came to an intensive care with intravenous drips, heart monitors attached to me. The nurse had spent the night checking my BP every 20 minutes. As my eyes opened and I took in the situation, my first question was, nurse, did I come in here with any money? Followed by, what time is it? It was 6:30 AM, I had £2.45 in my pocket, I discharged myself against medical advice and was not sectioned because I was an alcoholic, and I walked 3 miles to the nearest newsagent who sold me a bottle of cider. The height of madness. I was not sectioned as alcoholism is not recognisable illness in this country. Indeed, the government sponsors many organisations to promote controlled drinking. As a psychiatric nurse, I was fully conversant with the Mental Health Act, and there are several police officers in Merseyside who have heard me utter to them, I am a danger to no one nor myself, officer, you may go. At which point they generally manhandled me into the back of their nice police van. Geoffrey Bernard, a racing journalist and self-confessed alcoholic, was once asked to publish his memoirs. He placed an ad in the Racing Post asking anyone who knew his whereabouts between 1964 and 1980 to get in touch, as he had no idea where he'd been. I could have asked the same questions between 1980 and 1986. I was arrested on one occasion for my own safety on a bitterly cold January night, having sat on a wall outside an off-licence. I was transported 20 miles to the police cells, but I was in blackout. I have no memory of getting there. I was apparently shouting and kicking, but my brain was not registering anything in memory. I was forcibly roused from my sedative coma 6 hours later, as under the PACE rules, I had to leave the safety of the police station at 4 AM in the morning. I was bailed to appear in court under my own reconnaissance. At this point, the duty sergeant says, Mr. Crabtree, I reluctantly have to give you back your possessions which you had about your person when being arrested. I thought it was bloody Christmas again. He gave me back 1 bottle of vodka, 6 special brew cans, and some cider. Much to my surprise, but I might not say his, he was reacquainting me with myself some 12 hours later.